Welcome to the Monday, March 23rd meeting of the Bennington Select Board here at the Bennington Fire Facility. My name is Jim Sullivan, and I will be chairing the meeting this evening in the absence of our chair, Tom Haley, who's not able to attend tonight, and I would like to give the other board members an opportunity to say hello.
Hi, good evening, Sarah Perrin.
Good evening, I'm Jackie Matz.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Clark Adams.
And I'm Ed Woods.
And we have our town manager, Dan Monk's here, assistant town manager, Shannon Barsati, and I won't say all the rest of your title because it's too long. Jonah Spivak is our communications coordinator, and Nancy Lively is taking minutes. And we have Cat TV recording or broadcasting the meeting tonight, so thank you for that. Before we get into anything in the agenda itself, I did get a note that it would be advisable to add an item to the agenda if the board sees fit, that having to do with the installation of the long-discussed bathroom at the skate park. We have a little bit of business on that, so would there be a motion to add that to the agenda after the public comment?
I would make that motion. What do you propose we make that under? Item?
Let's make it 4A under after public comment.
Okay, I make that motion to put that under 4A.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Clark. Any discussion?
And just for clarification, that will be item, and the title will be?
Skate park bathroom.
Perfect, thank you.
Do that. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes, so that's been added to the agenda. I'd like to welcome Nancy Hoyt, who just arrived. And as we always do, we will now start the meeting at the beginning of the agenda with the Pledge of Allegiance. Clark, could you lead us in the pledge?
Absolutely.
I said the word. You must be able to get that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Jackie, would you mind reading the town's vision statement?
Sure. Bennington is a welcoming, engaged, inclusive, and resilient community where everyone, regardless of identity, shares in our vitality and benefits from an outstanding quality of life.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda having to do with the minutes of March 9th, the warrants and licenses. Are there any comments or questions? First on the minutes of March 9th?
Well, for the purposes of discussion,
Yeah, we need a motion to discuss.
I'll move to accept the consent agenda.
Thank you, Jackie, and
And I'll second it.
thank you. All in favor? Oh, wait
Aye.
a minute, we're not doing that yet. So we're now in a discussion. This is your vice chair. Chair.
You're doing fine, Jim.
I don't mind making mistakes. So now are there questions, comments on the minutes of March 9th? Nancy?
On page 8, lines 273 and 274, it basically said the board voted to approve the conflict of interest policy and the public property sign policy. I don't think we discussed the sign policy.
I recall making the motion that's reflected in the minutes, and that there was an opportunity for discussion, but there wasn't an interest in discussing
Okay, well,
that.
I missed it because the policy doesn't say what happens to signs people put on town property that shouldn't be there.
I
Okay,
think
so I understand the minutes are accurate as presented, though?
Okay. Well, I'll bring it up in other business then.
Thank you. Anything else on the minutes? Okay, I'm going to, any questions about the warrants or the licenses? Nancy?
Page 1, 405229, 21st Century Concrete, floor drain supplies, $8,692.50. Floor drain for Bowen Road, $8,810. Bowen Road floor, $5,127.50 for a total of $22,630.
Is there a question?
Yeah, was that a problem with water coming up through the floor?
Not coming up through the floor. It was not draining properly after they washed the truck, so we did install a full-length floor drain in that building. Yeah.
And did they have a floor drain before?
They did in part of it on one side, but they needed to add one to the other side because it wasn't actually getting to the other drain. So they had to cut the concrete, slope it, and put the drain in. And now it's fully functional.
Okay. Also on page 1, 405241, the BBC and operating grant, $8,370.50.
Yes.
Who is the person that is accountable for their budget now that they haven't had an executive director since probably November?
Well, their board is responsible, and they also have a staff person, administrative staff person who still works there.
But shouldn't
Can
there
we
be
stick to
one?
questions on the warrants, please? We're going way down tracks that we don't need to go down. Thank you.
Well, I think it's important to know who the person is in
Do
charge.
you have a problem with the warrant? And you just got the answer that there's staff managing it.
Is it-
And
Go ahead, Nancy.
the last one, page 2, ER Bennington Solar 1LL Solar, $2,276.92. Is this a new company?
No, I don't remember which particular solar field this covers, but as you know, we have at least, we have a couple of agreements where we purchase the power from a solar provider, and that's part of that purchase.
Okay, this is,
And it's discounted by, I think that's 10%, so it's 10% less than what we would pay for power from the grid
okay.
directly.
Do you know if this is going to the Ben High?
No, this is not
Okay.
a Ben High
All right,
related
that's just
at all.
what I wanted to
No.
know.
There's no solar operating at that
All
facility.
right, thanks.
Okay. I don't see any additional hands, so can we take a vote on the consent agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that's unanimous, I guess. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the public comment, noting that this is a time for people in attendance to offer public comments, and it's not intended to be a time for general discussion of those comments. And I see that we have a couple of people who have signed up. The first is Will Greer with a legislative update. Will?
Good evening, everyone. I want to apologize. I was not here the past two select board meetings. 4 Mondays ago, my car was hit, so I was getting that all in the shop. And then two Mondays ago, a spider bit my eye. So just to let you know, it's been a rough couple of weeks. But now we're back in tip-top shape. So I'm going to start with housing, because I think this was a pretty big bill. Yeah, this was a pretty good bill that we passed in the House. It's now in the Senate. It's H757, which is the manufactured home bill. So there's 3 big components that I just want to highlight. First is the tax changes to anyone that purchases a manufactured home. So all homes would be exempt from sales tax, but they would be subject to the property transfer tax. So hopefully that would reduce some of the barriers put in place around that for manufactured homes. The other component was addressing the limited equity cooperatives. So now they're officially being treated, I believe it's a nonprofit corporation serving apologies, now they're being treated as a nonprofit corporate entity that serves low and moderate income residents. Again, there will be additional property tax benefits to that in addition to that property tax, transfer tax. The big thing that would concern municipalities is the zoning and permitting. So now manufactured homes under the bill, if it's not amended, would be essentially treated as the same as homes under municipal zoning. They would also be exempted from stormwater requirements. But I thought that was a good thing just to start off the night. On healthcare, we still have not received a lot of information around the Rural Health Transformation Fund, but the big thing after talking with our hospital and a few of the other hospitals around the state is that the big components that they're going after are around healthcare workers and expanding the labor participation of the healthcare workforce. So that includes rural residencies and clinical rotations, which hopefully will address some of the shortage of staff that we have. More high school preparation for people that want to go into healthcare. There'll be money available to that. And the big one that I've heard from a lot of people in the medical field, but also, good citizens at large, is tuition assistance tied to rural service. So there's going to be funds, I don't know the exact millions of dollars within that annual appropriation that we'll be able to spend on that. Environment and energy, there were two bills. One was H739, which is around herbicide paraquat, which is something that's used typically in agriculture, so this prohibits the sale and use of that product. It's banned in about 70 countries. There's very few jurisdictions in the U.S. that have it banned, but it is classified as a restricted use product, so they're not, so there's certainly FDA, federal agencies have noted how hazardous it is to human health. So that was one bill that we've passed, is also in the Senate. There's also one on PFAS, and that relates to pesticides and packaging products that contain PFAS, so we're adding to that list of products that we have PFAS, requirements on for chemical usage and that. And then the last thing I will tie up with is around the tax issues. I'm sure that's on everyone's mind. I just filed my taxes today, but your property tax bill. So I just double checked to make sure I was right on this. The education fund surplus was greater than anticipated. It's at $52 million as of today, which is about halfway from where the governor and the House were projecting to buy down the rate for this year. So now there's going to be some quabbles with, do we use the one-time money from the general fund in addition to the $52 million, which that should be guaranteed because, again, that's money we've all paid in, and that should come back in the next year. But we're going to hopefully be voting on that in the next week or two. So I will let you know once we decide what we're doing. But that's it. So thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you, Will. And have Kate Kost with a CPAR announcement.
Good evening, Kate Koss, Bennington. I'm here as chair of the Community Policing Advisory Review Board. I have two announcements. The first is a reminder that we are hosting a third Public Safety Education Forum this Thursday, March 26th, from 6 to 8 p.m. in the third floor multipurpose room, this room, at the firehouse. This forum, focusing on vulnerable youth, will provide information on the unmet needs of youth in Bennington, how these impact the safety of our community and crime prevention efforts, effective prevention strategies used to reduce engagement in at-risk activity, and how the community can provide pipelines of support. We're really encouraging panelists to discuss collaboration with the community and how we can support their efforts and they can support ours. Panelists include representatives from agencies that provide direct services and support to young people and their families in Bennington. These include Rachel Burnham, Chief Medical Director at United Counseling Services, Nate Giotti, Juvenile Program Case Manager at Center for Restorative Justice, Caitlin Harrington, Youth Development Coordinator at Sunrise Family Resource Center, Kyle Hoover, District Director, Family Services Office at the Department of Children and Families, Erica Marthage, Vermont State's Attorney, and Tricia Wright, SVSU Family Engagement Specialist. Together, they will inform the public about how we can work better together to support youth and improve public safety. A second announcement I have is that Roxanne Corelli, Executive Director of Operational Services and Shelter Services at Bennington County Coalition for the Homeless, will present information about the services and support the organization provides for homeless individuals and families. And this will be at our next meeting, April 23rd. She will also discuss the agency's many collaboration activities with BPD to prevent crime and improve public safety. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Kate. Is there anyone else who is in attendance who would like to make a public comment who didn't have a chance to sign in? Yes, good, Martha.
Hi, Martha Mackey, Bennington, Vermont. So I'd like to make a comment about local emergency management planning, which is something that this town's been working on revising a lot over the last 2 years. And that's about managing all kinds of local emergencies. And with the war in Iran, we're currently seeing prices for gas and oil skyrocketing. We're seeing shortages of fertilizer. So we're likely to see, and we're already seeing prices increase, and we're likely to see an ongoing crisis that may lead to severe food shortages and shortages of other goods and products. So I think it is our duty as a town to think about how we're going to prepare for this emergency and such immense shortages in the case of any disaster or situation that could cause these kind of circumstances. So I think that's going to take some creative thinking about what it looks like to support existing localized agriculture and food systems, and what it looks like to expand on those, to maybe take ownership of some of those as a town. What are our existing resources, both land-wise and manpower-wise? I know our budget's already been passed, so what can we do as a town to help ensure that we are prepared for this kind of emergency? And there was one other thing I wanted to say. Oh, different issue. I would love to see on the agenda very soon fines for vacant businesses. I think that's something that would really have a positive impact on our town, and I know it's come up before. So we need to get those businesses filled so that we can have business and tax income in our towns. So, thank you.
Thanks, Martha. I have a question of you. First of all, the vacant properties thing, I guarantee you'll be hearing more about that in the very near future. I've thought a lot about different types of emergencies too, and kind of like some of them longer scale, but longer term, but no less serious emergencies that really play out in things like disruption in food systems and energy systems and all those things like that. Is that the kind of thing you see like the Emergency Management Planning Committee working on? Is that within the charge of that group, do you think?
It could be. The local emergency management plan is something that can be adapted by any town at any time, so that is possible. That committee has never been formalized, so my suggestion would be if that were to be the approach, that we make a formal committee for that.
Okay. Well, we will take that under advisement.
Yeah.
Jim, let me just comment on that.
Yeah.
That we would need the chief of police to be in the loop on that since he manages the local emergency action plan.
Yeah, and I would love to hear back at least by next meeting as to what the plans are for this emergency, because this is happening in the immediate future. So, thank you.
Thank you. Great. Okay. Having gotten through the public comment, we are now on to the item that was added to the agenda regarding the proposed bathroom at the skate park, and I think Shannon has an overview.
All right. Thanks for adding me to the agenda tonight. I'm here to talk about an opportunity to build a new public restroom at the skate park. So we have a generous donation of a precast building from Daily Precast in Shaftesbury. They also built the bathroom at Lower Willow Park that we've been using for over 30 years, so we know it lasts. And the Daily Precast manager, Jonathan Kirk, would like to partner with Southwest Tech Building Trades program and invite the students to the plant to help design the bathroom, work with the building trades teacher, Brian Kuhn, who's offered for his students to build the roof once the bathroom walls are up. Dailies will donate their time and materials to build the walls, and they're also going to bring a crane to our site and do the installation. So part of why I wanted to come tonight is that we have the opportunity with our Department of Public Works team. They have a window of time as early as next week to start on the site work, to connect the water and sewer, to also do the forms for the concrete foundation for the building. And with their help, we can have the site ready for Daily Precast to install the walls, and hopefully Southwest Tech students to be able to build the roof before school is out. So we are on kind of a time-sensitive schedule, hoping for the best. Our Buildings and Grounds Department could finish the roof if the students aren't able to, but it would be great to have them part of that whole process. So if you go to the next slide, this is the site location from above. You can see the skate park here. The red box is where the bathroom will be. It's not closer to the skate park because of this whole area is kind of the flood hazard zone, right, being near the river. So we pushed it closer to River Street. It will have lighting and a security camera, to really, these are very sturdy buildings. And it's about 50 feet from River Street there. If you go to the next slide. This is the building plan. Partly why we were able to fast track this is because we also had a generous donation from local architect Jeff Metcalf, who did the site plan for us. So thank you to him. And we've got the plan ready. The building permit is in. And if you go to the next slide. The budget to do, the total cost to the town will be $25,000. So that includes the site work, mostly the materials for the concrete forms, the conduit to connect the water and sewer, and the excavation, et cetera. That's all being done by our town staff, but that's the cost of materials. We have a quote for $6,500 for the electrical work, and then $12,500 for the plumbing, the fixtures, and the roofing materials. And then the roof would also be built by the students or our town staff. So, but if we were to add up all of those expenses, if we had to pay for them, including the precast building, we would be closer to $100,000. So it's just an amazing donation from the community to be able to get this done. And what I am asking from the select board tonight is that you would authorize our beginning this work. Like I said, DPW is ready to get it started next week. We have currently almost $5,000 in the skate park reserve, and the project could use Penny for Parks Fund or other reserve or contingency funds for that $20,000 so that we can complete the skate park bathroom and have it ready for the summer season. I wanted to also just let you all know that because we've come to talk about the Penny for Parks funds for the pickleball courts that we want to install at Willow Park, and we are still in the running for that federal grant, but we still haven't received word. So that's something that, after talking with our town staff, we decided we can't fit it into this year's construction schedule because we don't have a grant agreement. We're still hopeful that it can happen next year. Therefore, we do have funds available. So that's the request for tonight. Do you have any questions?
Thanks, Shannon. From the board, any questions or comments? Yeah, Clark?
Hi, it's great. I appreciate the community input on this project. We all know the circumstance with the splash pad public toilets. The person who owns a property adjacent to that has actually contacted me about hooliganism in that area. So those are my concerns, that it's wonderful we're going to have this, but public safety security issues have reared its head even before we're going to put these buildings there. So I don't know how we can address that, but I think it's something that we really need to have in place before this goes.
Definitely, and we have talked with town staff, both buildings and grounds, and our IT director, Nick, so he's, one thing we do have at the skate park that we don't have at the splash pad is we do have a really high-tech camera that's like 360 that we can see the area well. We can, like I said, have additional lighting, automatic locks on the doors, et cetera, to just really try and keep any, inappropriate use at bay as much as possible.
Well, I was looking at your picture, and it's hard to tell in terms of the entrance and so forth. It looks to me like they might.
It's more, it's a 10 by 16 building, and so it's longer than it is wide.
Right.
And the entrance is going to be from the skate park side.
Okay, so in fact, the security cameras will have unobstructed, clear view of the entrance.
Yeah, because the camera, if you go back to the other one here, Jonah, is we've got a camera on the light. You don't see the light poles here, but there's a camera on the light pole that we can see because that camera is 360.
Okay, and I'd say it'll be a unisex facility from what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's just a one ADA bathroom. The other side of it is going to be a storage area for our staff, for our maintenance staff, and we're working on the facade. They have the Dailies Precast can do a lot of different facades that kind of match the character of the neighborhood. So we're talking about brick because they do have, the brick pieces that they have from other jobs. So also, I think that they did some work on the Bennington Firehouse, so they can match those colors so that it kind of matches the surroundings.
Okay, all right. Again, my concern is safety and security issues with this, and I don't really want to repeat what we have here with this splash pad where it's locked up most of the day. Thank you.
Other questions? Nancy?
So this would be getting locked at night like the bathroom at the splash park does?
Yes.
Yes.
And the town never used the $300,000 from the pennies for parks that the board voted that they used. There's still money left in there. So that could come right from that money, correct?
Right. Yeah, we used the funds that had been allocated to the skate park, but every year when people pay their taxes, that's how we generate about $100,000 a year in revenue for Penny for Parks.
Well, but in what the town paid, it wasn't the full $300,000. It was $30,000, and I wondered why the town didn't spend the full $300,000. So there still is money left from that original $300,000.
As far as I know, we did spend the full $300,000, but I'd have to talk with the finance director.
I'll find the email and send it to you.
Okay.
That I got, I think, from Melissa.
Yeah, when we did our fundraising, we did raise some additional money, and she did set that aside into the capital reserve, but she gave us, like $5,000 in reserve. And this is a great use of that money. And I think, given that we have, additional funds in Penny for Parks, it's a great project to be able to get it done because the alternative is a porta potty. It's an area that gets heavy use, as soon as that weather warms up. And I think that a public restroom is going to be really great to have there.
Jackie.
Thanks, Shannon. This looks like a pretty well thought out project. I'm excited also at the potential that parents coming to watch their kids will also have a place that they can go use a restroom and not have to leave. And so I think the additional foot traffic, both from young people skating and maybe old people skating and watching their kids, will actually go a long way towards keeping that area a little safer and better monitored. So I think that's fantastic. I'm stunned by the price. I'm redoing the bathroom in my own house right now, and I'm hoping to keep my bathroom under that price. And I already have a foundation and a roof and plumbing, so I think that's fantastic.
Well, I mean, and we really do owe so much to our town staff, because we're really lucky to have, that's why we are able to repair our own bridges right now. Our bridge crew can do all of this concrete work that if we were to hire that out, it would be really expensive.
Ed?
I just want to make a comment, and that is thank you to Jeff Metcalf and Daily Precast for the commitment on this. This is huge.
That's obviously a much-needed facility. So, any questions from folks in attendance tonight? Bridget?
Not really a question, just I think it's really wonderful that you're involving the high school kids. People will have a vested interest in it, and I think that adds to besides the deal, and it just sounds wonderful.
And just for the record, could you let us know your name?
Bridget Elder.
Bridget Elder. Thank you. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Bradley Roy, Bennington, Vermont. I was just wondering if you know how much it's going to be to maintain for the year.
Shannon, have you considered how the town staff...
The maintenance costs of the bathroom itself? That's a good question. I mean, there is I don't know if it's daily or every couple of days, during the season, our buildings and ground staff are going to be on site, cleaning the skate park. They have to clean out the drains, so they're going to be cleaning the bathroom, checking it out. So I don't think it's going to add a lot more time to their schedule, but having that storage unit as part of the building is also going to be convenient for them. But it is something that, once we're in that summer season, they're there every day.
Yeah, I imagine that having the maintenance add-on is probably going to save any extra time that they would have been used for maintaining the bathroom, so that's great.
Hopefully so.
Any other questions, Martha?
I think it's worth pointing out that by having this permanent facility, we will not have to pay a monthly fee for a porta potty, so we will get that savings as well.
Martha Mackey, Bennington, Vermont. This is a question more for the board rather than for the town. Shannon, I'm sorry, I'm tired. So it's a question for you about if we're able to address the issues with the skate park bathroom. Is it possible that we could also address those issues with the splash pad so that we would be able to have that bathroom open more frequently? Thank you.
That one, I almost think that we could maybe benefit from a little bit at a future meeting, a little bit of a discussion about what the issues have been and what possible solutions might be. But a really good idea, Martha. Yeah, it's been an issue. I think having restrooms available to the public in convenient locations is really important for a town like Bennington, and we need to address any issues and shortcomings. So I think that's one we should look at. Thank you. Anything else? Is there anyone on the board interested in making a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the proposal for adopting this. I make a motion.
So I think
I'm going to stop with the wordage.
The motion is to proceed with the construction installation of the restroom facility at the skate park as outlined in Shannon's presentation.
Maybe it's your motion then.
I get it.
That sounds better.
And second by Clark, discussion of the motion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, that one is unanimous. Thank you very much, Shannon.
Thank you.
And the next item on the agenda is a proposed traffic calming on Monument Avenue, and I believe Mark Anders is got a presentation to kick things off.
Yes. You are correct. Mark will be giving the presentation. However, we had discussed that it would make sense for me to briefly introduce what the ordinance is and how it works, just to kind of refresh our collective memories.
Thanks, John.
Tony, just to clarify, it's a policy, not an ordinance, so not quite as strictly necessary or is difficult to change as a policy. So,
thank you, Dan. That's correct. That policy was adopted by the Select Board in November of 2024. And basically what it allows is for citizens who are concerned about excessive speeding in their neighborhoods to contact the town and see if they can initiate a traffic calming study. And by the way that works is outlined in detail on the town's website, along with all the forms that you need. If you just go to benningtonvt.org and search for traffic calming, you'll get right there. In a nutshell, the way it works is that someone in a neighborhood that wants to initiate a traffic calming study simply fills out a form requesting that. That then goes to myself as the communications coordinator for the town of Bennington, and I review it for 3 criteria. Number 1, it has to be a town-controlled road versus a state-controlled road. Number 2, the speed limit has to be 35 miles or lower per hour. And number 3, the section of the road needs to be at least 600 feet in length. If those 3 criteria are met, I then ask the BCR to generate a map of the proposed study area. I then go to our listers to create a list of all the property owners that are in that affected area, and I provide a petition. And all of that goes back to that initial requester. That initial requester now becomes that contact person for this traffic calming effort. Once they've received that information, they need to visit all those residents within that suggested area for the traffic calming and have them sign a petition requesting a traffic study. If at least 2/3 of the residents in the area request that, then it is approved from the town side and we initiate a traffic study using the BCRC. Once that traffic study is done, first of all, they determine how much of a problem there is in the area, and they also suggest possible traffic calming measures. Once they've done that, those documents come back to the town for an internal review among staff and our department heads, and if there's no modifications or changes, that is sent back to that community contact to again reach out to those same people on that petition list. That is the landowners in that area that they're interested in having these measures take effect, and they have to let everyone weigh in on that idea. So if, again, 2/3 of the people in that neighborhood decide that they like the idea of those traffic calming measures, then at that point, it comes back to the town. I verify that 2/3 of the people have voted positively in favor of that or have signed that petition. And then at that point, my portion is kind of done. It gets handed over to the Planning Commission, and our projects director sort of takes the lead from that point. And what the Planning Commission does is they would then rank using you'll see this, using a criteria that's set up by the policy that is ranked by the BCRC initially, sort of saying where it stands in terms of those criteria of safety. And then if there's more than one project, the Planning Commission would be requested to rank those projects. In this case, we have only one project, so even though you'll see what goes into the ranking, and an example of that, there's no project to rank it against, and at that point, it really becomes a select board choice as to what measures you want to implement. Now, that's a lot of information all at once, so I would reiterate that if someone's interested in doing this process, all the forms and information is on the town's website, and the good news is now that we're at this stage with you tonight, and this is our first time going through it, in addition to this refresher I just gave you, we're going to have Mark give sort of an in-depth presentation of what does that traffic calming policy or a study look like and what the next step recommendations could be. So at this point, unless there's a quick question for me regarding the policy, I'll hand it over to Mark. Any questions on the policy side? All right, very good. Mark? Oh, we have something from the public.
Okay, you have a quick question on if it's a policy question, go ahead.
It is a policy question, and if my question should wait till after, please postpone it. I just think that the policy process is really difficult for your average person to do. Like, just listening to all of those different steps, the amount of time and energy that would take for people to actually do. I know I wanted to do this for Union Street, which has a high accident incidence and speeding issue, and I just never had the time this year to get around to doing that. So that's my comment. I don't know if it's helpful for you to wait and answer that later, but I think that's something we should consider revising, considering that a lot of the highly impacted areas, people might just not have time for that. People are working, 60, 80 hours of work.
Appreciate that it's a process, and it probably is a process for a reason too, but that's something that we can consider.
Yeah.
And I think we'll get onto the specifics.
Yep, and I could just note that the select board did go through this process, figuring out this policy. This is the first implementation of it, so certainly you guys may want to modify it in the future.
Thank you.
Jim, I do have a comment I want to share, and I brought this up in the past. I'm concerned that the police chief gave us a list of about 8 to 10 streets and roads in Bennington the year before last. And my concern is we're not focusing on the roads that many of us are aware have had issues for years and decades, and the police department has the data. And if we're going to go by petitions rather than the recommendations of the police department, I think we're going to watch some of the issues on these roads get worse.
South Stream was one of those roads identified, so we are beginning to address them. But understood, this is the process that the select board chose to adopt, and that's what we're following.
And I don't want to get off track and discuss the policy and what the police department's done, but I appreciate that this is a policy, this is a citizen-led policy, but if the police department has specific areas of concern, I don't think that we're precluded from thinking about those and considering those as a board. Go ahead, Mark.
Hi, everybody. I am Mark Anders. I'm the Senior Transportation Planner at the Bennington County Regional Commission, and thank you for the invitation to give this presentation. And I apologize for people who have seen this last Thursday at the Planning Commission. So there may be some slides that I'll go through a little bit quickly. This is a picture of a crash on Monument Ave in the project area, proposed project area. And full disclosure, this crash was right in front of my house, so I do live in the project area. So I just want to make that clear. I didn't sign any of the petitions. I'm really just here as a technical advisor. So next slide, please. So I'm going to just briefly, this is what the structure of what I'm going to talk about. First is what is traffic calming? Why do we need it? 2 local project examples. So there's one in Lebanon, New Hampshire, and one in Pittsfield, Mass. that I'll just show as examples of what we could do in Bennington. And 3, I'll briefly talk about the Monument Ave project, proposed project. Next, please. So, what is traffic calming, and why do we need traffic calming, and where is it appropriate? Next, please. So this is I think this is a really fascinating picture. So these streets have a lot of similarities. They both have single-family houses. They're both local streets, and they really serve a very similar purpose. But I think if you look at them, it's probably one of the streets you would be more likely to obey the speed limit, and one street you would be less likely to obey the speed limit. And most people would say, and do say, that they would be more likely to obey the speed limit on the street on the right. And that's because there are street trees close to the edge of the pavement, there are parked cars, there's street parking, there's no center double yellow line, so it doesn't look like a highway. And this street, so this street is sort of what we call self-enforcing. It's designed for people to drive slower. It sort of forces you to drive slow. Now this street, we see a lot of streets like this in Vermont. And this street is like an invitation to drive fast, right? Because it's straight, it looks like a highway, there's no street trees right next to the edge. So this street is a street that would probably benefit from traffic calming. So next slide, please. So this is a kind of a local example. So these streets superficially look very similar. They both have, next slide, please. They both have 11-foot travel lanes. They both have a double yellow center line, and they both have narrow shoulder. Now, the one on the top is Route 7A. I think that's in Arlington, and that has a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit. And the one on the bottom is Monument Ave, which has a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. And the reason the speed limit is 30 is because driveways have limited sight distance. People walk on the road, people bike on the road. It's not a highway. But it is sort of an invitation to go fast because it looks like a highway. Next slide, please. So another issue, I represent 17 towns and villages, and we get many, many complaints from all of these towns and villages about speeding and traffic volume. And really what traffic calming is it's an attempt to make roads safer, but it's also to improve quality of life. You can see here, this is a picture from the project area. You can see where the license plate's from. Because of Google Maps and Waze, a lot of traffic is diverted off our highways, which are designed for volume and speed, onto more local roads. And a lot of people from Massachusetts use this particular road to get to the hospital and also to a shortcut down to Kosher Drive. And research shows that cut-through traffic tends to drive faster than local traffic. Next slide, please. So I looked at 10 years of crash data for Bennington, and there are a lot of crashes in Bennington. In 10 years, there were 4,111 crashes, 777 injury crashes, and an injury crash can have more than one injury. And there were 10 fatal crashes, and of course, a fatal crash can have more than one fatality. So we do have an issue with crashes, and a lot of those are speed related. Next slide, please. So getting back to the crash in front of my house, so it's a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. So this vehicle was going much faster than 30 miles an hour, hit the culvert at the edge of the road, got airborne, lost a bumper on this sign, hit up here, broke the pole into 3 places, and came to a rest. And fortunately, the driver only had minor injuries. But if somebody had been pulling out here or walking or biking, it could have easily been a fatal crash. So I think this sort of illustrates the problem. Next slide, please. So this is a picture of somebody walking on Monument Ave. And people do like to walk on many of Bennington's roads. And next slide, please. So the reason it's really important to control speed on roads where people walk is because it gets exponentially more dangerous as speeds go up. So if you get hit by a car going 20 miles an hour, you have a 10% chance of dying, a 10% chance of receiving serious injuries, and an 80% chance of receiving minor injuries. So if you get hit by a car going 45 miles an hour, you have a 60% chance of dying, a 30% chance of getting major injuries, and a 10% chance of getting minor injuries. So it goes up exponentially. So that's why it's really important to control speed on our roads that people want to walk on. So traffic calming, there's many different forms of traffic calming. I'm going to be focusing on vertical deflection because that is very effective. Next slide, please. So vertical deflection, you probably think of them as speed bumps. So this is a speed bump. I'm not talking about speed bumps for traffic calming. Speed bumps belong in parking lots or driveways to schools. They're not designed for public roads. What I'm talking about are speed humps, which are much longer. Next slide, please. So not speed bumps, speed humps. Next slide, please. So a speed hump is 12 to 14 feet long. It's about 3 inches, 3.5 inches tall. And you can drive over them comfortably at about 25 to 30 miles an hour. Next slide, please. So these are not some radical kind of design idea. This is a typical design that you can download from the Federal Highway Administration. And that the Federal Highway Administration does encourage communities to use speed humps to make streets safer. Actually, Pittsfield, Mass. uses this exact design for their speed hump installations. Next slide, please. So this is what one looks like in the wild on a street that looks kind of like it could be Bennington. And you'll notice that here that it looks like people drive around the speed hump a little bit. So the way to prevent that is you put a little speed sign there just so people can't drive off the road. So the question is, are speed humps effective? Do they actually slow traffic? So next slide, please. So the source of most of my information here comes from the ITE, which is the Institute of Transportation Engineers. It's got a really catchy title, A Guide to Vertical Deflection Speed Reduction Techniques, and it's about 160 pages long. So if you're having trouble getting to sleep, I recommend this, but actually I really find it fascinating. So the ITE is, this is like the gold standard for highway engineering and road engineering in the United States. This is the guide that the Federal Highway Administration refers to, and the ITE is like, this is really, they do really good work. Next slide, please. So the ITE did a survey of 125 speed hump installations since the year 2000, all across the country. Next slide, please. So this is what they found. So vehicles traveling 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, that was reduced by 74%. Vehicles traveling 10 miles an hour over the speed limit went down by 81%, and typical traffic volume went down by 20%. And that's because maybe a few people would seek out roads that are designed more for speed. So next slide, please. So the next question is, does this translate to safety improvements? So the ITE found out that the injury crash modification factor is about 0.6. So that means there were 40% fewer injury crashes where there were speed hump installations. And they've done many studies about this. It shows that it reduces injuries and deaths to children, to pedestrians, to cyclists. It seems pretty clear that speed humps do make roads and streets safer. Next slide, please. So there are also some small tweaks that can be made as we look at these proposed traffic calming projects in Bennington. One is removing the double yellow center line. Some studies suggest that people drive slower when you remove the double yellow center line. And the other is narrowing the travel lanes a little bit. A lot of our travel lanes are 11 feet. They could be narrowed to 10 feet just by when you repaint the lines on the road. Next slide, please. So I really like this section of Monument Ave because it feels like it sort of doesn't invite you to drive fast. And years ago, Arnold Ricks and Charlie Edson in Old Bennington convinced V-Trans that these pavers should count for lane width, so they got away with kind of narrowing the road. Currently, there's no center line on it, and I think that it feels like a sort of a calm, safe stretch of road because of the design. Next slide, please. So really quickly, another tool is the radar feedback sign. So these display your speed in comparison to the speed limit, and you don't not get a ticket or anything. It just sort of like scolds you. You're going 40 miles an hour when it's 25. but there's no ticket or anything like that that's attached to this. And studies show that this can reduce speeds between like 3 and 11 miles an hour, but the effect tends to fade over time as people realize they're actually not going to get ticketed. So it has to be paired with enforcement to really be effective. Next slide, please. So a couple of local examples. First is in Lebanon, New Hampshire, and the next is in Pittsfield, Mass. Lebanon, New Hampshire, there's one on Dulac Street. So Dulac Street, they put in 3 speed humps and 2 chicanes. And I went there, I drove up and down. They are very effective. And I talked to the Public Works Director there, and he said they're very effective, and they haven't been a big issue to plow in the winter. Next slide, please. So another local example, a newer local example that's much closer is in Pittsfield. So Pittsfield actually has a pretty robust traffic calming program, it turns out. Next slide, please. So Partridge Road, Oak Hill Road is a cut through to Crane Ave. And my wife was actually one of these cut-through drivers she was in a hurry, and all of a sudden she encountered 11 speed humps they had just installed. And for me, this was really gold because I've been looking for local examples, so this is very exciting for me. Next slide, please. So this is what it looks like as you're coming in from the north. Next slide, please. And then all of a sudden you notice the speed bumps ahead sign. And I will say that the ITE says that people steal speed hump signs. So a lot of communities will put up speed bump signs, or they'll say they're speed tables ahead, but
You don't want to speculate on why they steal those signs?
I have no idea why they would do that. Next slide, please. So this is the first one that you'll encounter. This is kind of what it looks like. Next slide. Then the neighborhood transitions into more of a residential neighborhood. Next one. So I went there a couple of months ago, and I drove up and down because I'm a big traffic calming fan, and this is what they look like. It's a very high quality installation that was done as part of a paving project. I talked to some of the residents in the neighborhood. Overall, they were very positive. Their only issue was sometimes in the areas where it's not curbed, people would drive on the lawns a little bit. But as I said, you can get away if you put signs up that gets rid of that problem. So I talked to Tyler Shedd, who is the DPW engineer in Pittsfield, about whether it was a success or not. And so he said that it has significantly reduced cut-through traffic, that in the 30-mile-an-hour zones, speeds dropped from 40 to 45 miles an hour to about 25 to 30 miles an hour, so they worked to reduce speed. And he said something interesting, which I think was the takeaway quote. He said, "The nature of the road is profoundly changed." And he also said snow plowing has not been an issue. So they did it as part of a repaving project, and he said they cost about $2,500 to $3,000 each. Next slide, please. So briefly talk about the Monument Ave traffic calming plan. So as part of that policy, we are asked to do a 1-week speed study. So the sort of the benchmarks we're looking for in the Bennington the Bennington traffic calming policy, we mention projects where if the percentage of vehicles exceeding the posted speed limit is 25% or greater, then it might be a good project. And if it's 10% over, if vehicles going 10 miles an hour over the speed limit is greater than 10%. So on Monument Ave, 5 miles an hour over was 67%, so way over the 25% threshold, and 21%, 10 miles an hour over, so about double over the threshold. Next slide, please. So then we also look at crash history. So usually you look at a long period, so about 10 years. So there were 18 crashes along the proposed project area. The yellow dots are property damage only crashes, and the red dots are injury crashes. So there were 18 total crashes, and there's a couple of crash clusters, one there, one here, and one there. And this is actually quite a few crashes for a road like this in Bennington. In fact, most of the crashes on Monument Ave, all of Monument Ave, happen in this area. Next slide, please. So our proposal to sort of address these issues is 2 steps. The first is to install a radar feedback sign just south of Southshire Drive, and to see what impact it has. You know, and we'll do another speed study a few months after it's installed to see if that adequately reduced speeds. And if it doesn't, next slide, please. The next step would be to install speed humps, just like they did in Pittsfield, about 300 to 500 feet apart. And the opportunity to do this cheaply is when the road is repaved. And this section of road is slated to get a new water line, possibly this year. So my recommendation would be to wait until after that before installing these, and then do it as part of the paving post-water line installation. Next slide, please. And the last sort of small tweak would be to narrow the travel lanes. Currently, they're 11 feet to 10 feet, and that wouldn't require any repaving or anything. It would just be like moving repainting the fog lines in a foot. So next slide. So that's it. So any questions?
Thanks, Mark.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we'll take any questions from the board first. Clark, I see you got a hand up.
Going back to your slide,
Really slow.
Yeah.
So that's my suspicion.
Okay.
I don't know for sure, but
I mean, I'm not a traffic engineer by any means.
Yeah.
I do ride a motorcycle, and I took the DMV course for that. And one of the things that they really impressed to us during that training was the danger of intersections. I did notice that a lot of these clusters seem to be right around intersections.
yeah, like sorry, I'm not very good at this thing. Yeah, like right here, there's a cluster, here there's a cluster, and then here.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know of these 17 crashes, how many were speed related?
I don't know for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we could pull up the VTrans crash query tool gives you a little bit of detail about the crashes, but there is a crash site, another crash cluster to the south, and a lot of those are weather related. So when the road gets slippery, people tend to go off the road. That's when you get down more to Carpenter Hill Road. There's a spot there that a lot of people tend to go off. I think that these are not so much weather related.
Okay. The other thing that I see when I look at this stretch of road and think about the traffic patterns, you mentioned a lot of the folks that or that we have some data about. They're from out of state. I was just talking to a coworker of mine that lives in Massachusetts that was up at the hospital last weekend for a medical emergency for her son. And this road leads right to the hospital. It seems like it would be really unlikely, even if you made the speed on this road very low, that Google would route people all the way through the center of Bennington and then come back to the hospital, right? I'm thinking that probably a lot of the traffic on this road is folks trying to reach that, one of the largest employers in this area, obviously a critical facility for a lot of people. Some of the images of the other roads that you had showed us in New Hampshire and down in Massachusetts, they look very residential, like they didn't have sort of any of those larger institutions or businesses on them, but I couldn't really obviously tell from the photos. Are there significant differences between this stretch of road and the ones that you've shown us as examples in other places?
I mean, neither of them have hospitals. The one in Pittsfield, Crane Ave is a very big business area, so it does end in a business area. So as far as the hospital goes, I did talk to the hospital to see if they had any concerns. They don't have any concerns about this particular stretch because this is not an emergency response route. If you're transporting somebody by ambulance, they're supposed to go down Route 7 and then take a left on Elm Street or Week Street. Undoubtedly a lot of the traffic is to the hospital and also to sort of the Northside Drive area, Kosher Drive area, where people are trying to avoid downtown. So those are really the two biggest sources of traffic. And also to New York State, too. That's a way to cut around to New York State.
Okay. And then refresh my memory. I know that you have done this presentation for us previously as we were just talking about the policy and everything. Is there a maximum speed that speed humps are appropriate for? Like, you wouldn't put them on a road that is intended to be a 50-mile-an-hour road.
Right, yeah. The recommended speed, you can go about 25 to 30 miles an hour over speed hump, and the speed limit there is 30, but you wouldn't put it on like a 50-mile-an-hour road or anything like that. Yeah.
Okay, so that's really, it's the maximum limit of a speed hump is basically the same as the speed limit on this road.
Yeah, I don't know exactly, but I'd have to look at my ITE guide for speed humps. There are other designs for vertical deflection for higher speed roads, and there's actually some even for emergency vehicles. Those are more expensive. The nice thing about speed humps is they're the cheapest.
Yeah. Okay. And then thank you for including some of the information on the radar, the 2 to 11 mile an hour reduction.
Yeah.
I happen to notice that seems to kind of line up with 85th percentile speed above speed limit is about 10 miles an hour. So especially if a good portion of the traffic on that street is also people that are not local, they might not encounter then that radar sign as frequently, and so maybe that could be a good part of the solution. Maybe we put that sign up and see if that helps alleviate the problem enough, and then if it doesn't, then maybe we move forward with the speed humps when the road gets repaved.
Yep.
That is your recommendation?
Yeah, that is my recommendation, yes.
Yeah.
Great.
Other board members? Nancy?
Average cost of one of the radar feedback signs?
Last time I looked, they're about $3,500, $4,000.
And I don't know, has anybody from the town talked to other towns using these signs? I've seen different ones. I just wonder if some companies have signs that are more dependable than some of the other companies that make them. I mean, I'd love to get half a dozen and put them around town. I think they're going to make a big difference.
Yeah, I don't know what the best brands are. We can certainly ask. I know Manchester put one up recently.
I know Chester has had it probably for the longest of any in this area, and theirs always is working when I go through the village. So what happens to a plow if it doesn't get lifted up and it hits that speed limit?
I asked a DPW engineer in Pittsfield about that, about plowing. He said it hasn't really been an issue. They just have to slow down over the speed humps.
And on average, how long does one last? 5 years, 10 years?
They last about as long as the road paving. So, after the road needs to be repaved, there'll be a chance to redo them.
I think my biggest concern about this is I think people get a false sense of safety on Monument Avenue when they're walking or riding a bike. I don't think there's room to move the lines to make the lanes more narrow. I think there's enough vehicles that are probably 5 feet wide where if they're on that road, even if they're going 25 miles an hour, if they meet another car, there really isn't room on either side of the road. What is the state law? How wide should a sidewalk or pathway be next to a road?
Next to a road, well, a sidewalk is usually about 5 feet wide, and a path, the minimum is 8 feet.
No, but if you're going to add a pathway or sidewalk in a rural area next to a road,
Right.
is there a state law? Doesn't it have to be 4 feet wide?
Talking about shoulder width?
I'm sorry?
Like a
Shoulder
paved-
shoulder
yes,
width?
that's what
Oh,
I'm-
shoulder width. That's a good question. I mean, 5 feet is sort of like best practice, but we wouldn't have enough, you'd have to repave, you'd have to make the road much wider to do it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the design guidelines for that, and it depends on the classification of the road, and the traffic volume of the road, and the speed of the road.
Yeah.
I mean, they would range, in a road that was not in the middle of town, where it was kind of a shared use lane, a minimum of 3 feet and up to 5 feet.
I would just like to know what that is, because you go places and you see a line where there's 2 or 3 feet, and I just think that's a false sense of security. If you're going to have a dump truck or a garbage truck or a delivery truck or school bus in a 5 feet wide lane, and there's somebody next to it and somebody's coming towards them, there just isn't enough room for everybody. And that's the problem with a lot of the rural roads. There isn't enough. I mean, a lot of places on Monument Avenue, you get 2 feet away from the road, you're starting down into the ditch. And I don't know how you could fill that in to extend the road wider. I would think the water would just come and wash that dirt out in the spring.
Yeah, to widen roads is very, very expensive.
Well, I guess I'm saying the wrong, trying to add something onto the shoulder to make it safer for people on bikes and walkers.
Oh, to add fill, that would still be very expensive, and there's a lot of drainage, ditches, and streams also along the road, so you would have to contend with those as well.
And what does the head of our highway department, how does he feel about the speed tables in the roads?
I guess I would defer to Dan or Jonah for that.
I would say that the DPW department has concerns about speed humps or tables, which is why we're proposing to try the radar feedback signs first, see if they work. I think, in all transparency, that it's very unlikely that they will work for any extended period of time, but if they do, that would be great. But then it will be up to this board to decide whether they're serious about reducing speed on that roadway by installing vertical deflection, or if they're satisfied with where it's at when we finish up in about a year with our study.
I have read when these signs are permanently mounted, they're much more effective than, we've had the sign on the cart for years. You move the cart every month, and people, they aren't used to it. I know when I go to an area where the sign is, even though I know it's there, I look at how fast I'm going before I get close enough, so.
The recommendation is for a permanent installation, not for just a cart.
Yes. Yeah, and actually there was a temporary installation maybe 10 years ago on Monument Ave. This would be a permanent one.
Yeah. I think even if we were to proceed with vertical deflection, we want to have radar feedback signs at the beginning of each one of those, at the beginning of that area, and with signs warning folks that there's speed humps or speed tables ahead. So a permanent installation is the way to go if we're going to do it. Yeah.
Sarah?
I think most of the things I had concerns about or questions about were answered, but I think you mentioned that there are no concerns with emergency vehicles, fire, rescue, or police. Is that correct?
We did show this plan to Chief Doucette. Yeah.
Okay, and then there were no concerns with plowing either?
Well, I can't speak to Bennington's DPW, but when I talked to the DPW at Lebanon, New Hampshire, and in Pittsfield, they said it was not an issue.
Okay. I think this is great. Thank you for coming to us. I think this is fantastic. I've come across many speed tables and traveling, and I know that they've worked for me. I've tried to get to a wonderful destinations a little too quickly, and they've really slowed me down. So, yeah, I think this is fantastic. And I know we're looking at the project on Monument, but Silver Street has some issues too. So, thank you.
I have a couple of questions myself. You're proposing the radar feedback sign on the south end of the corridor for northbound traffic. Do you have? Is there data that differentiates the average speed levels of the northbound versus southbound traffic on the road?
It's, we have the data for both. It is higher going on this part of Monument Ave heading north because they're going downhill. But on the other side of Monument Ave, where downhill is south, people go faster. And that's why we recommended the 1, because that's the northbound traffic is faster. And we recommended 1 as a cost savings measure. I mean, we could put up 2, obviously, but that would cost double.
Right, yeah. No, I mean, if you know that that's the biggest area of concern, it makes sense. And I was just wondering, on a road like this, in your discussions of double yellow lines and the possible value of removing double yellow lines for slowing traffic down, have you thought about what the value of a double yellow line is on a road like this? I mean, I get what you're saying. It makes it feel like more of a rural road. It also, I mean, if people are in a hurry on this road, they might be inclined to try to pass somebody too. The double yellow line at least doesn't prevent that, but at least it sends a message that they shouldn't be trying that, right?
Yeah, that's, I guess that's the theory. I haven't seen any data that says it makes it safer. I mean, fog lines definitely make it safer because it keeps you on the road. And there's some people think that double yellow lines make it less safe for cyclists because people aren't as free to pass pass very widely. They're sort of constrained by the double yellow line. And this is really getting into the weeds, but double yellow lines are not required on rural collector roads like this with a traffic volume of under 3,000. And this road does have traffic volume under 3,000, so the MUTCD doesn't require it.
Okay.
But I think VTrans may require it for Class 2 town highways.
Class 2, okay.
And in Vermont, you're allowed to pass on a double yellow, I
Yeah,
believe.
I know, but it does send a, signal.
So Jim, I have some firsthand experience on the double yellow line versus not that I want to share. This was interesting. So I live on the other end of Old Bennington, of Monument Avenue, as you know, in the village. 3 years ago, in part of the double yellow line painting on Main Street, which is the responsibility of the state, because it's Route 9, there were yellow lines painted that went right up to the monument. There's a committee called Parks and Sidewalks in the village of Old Bennington. You should really tune in and listen. That committee voted to have those signs removed for the purposes of how it looked. We weren't talking about speed at that point. I live where that straightaway is on Monument Avenue. There is no doubt that the traffic speed went way up during the year that we had double yellow lines in front of those houses on Monument Avenue. So I speak to that from firsthand experience. When it was first presented to me, I think by you, Mark, that double yellow lines could give us a false sense of comfort when we're driving, I thought you were out of your mind, and I went home that day and I realized that maybe there's some truth to it, but then that happened with that double yellow line. Happened the second time, and we didn't wait as long to complain to the state, by the way, to have it removed. So it seems sort of, counterproductive, but it worked.
And I had one other question that it just, I think I know what your answer will be, but looking at the speed hump treatment along the corridor, And, it's been noted that the clusters of where the crashes have happened, and I would say even a majority of all the crashes are in that area around the Meadowbrook intersection and the cluster of houses there. And so I'm wondering, let's say that we have the radar feedback sign on the south end, and that helps some, but maybe not enough. What about, starting with 2 speed humps, like one on either side of where that cluster is, so that you're sending people that message to slow down before the area where most of the accidents seem to be taking place, and not put them along the rest of the corridor?
That's a really good question. So just to get back to the ITE manual, they do not recommend that. The speed humps are one point of control. And so sometimes what happens is people go over, if there's only one of them, people go over it and then off to the races. So they recommend, if you're trying to traffic calm an area, to space them 300 to 500 feet apart. So in, I can't remember the name of the town in Vermont, one of my colleagues worked on a project like this, and they put up 1 or 2, and it kind of backfired because it didn't really work. It wasn't enough, and they removed them. And the ITE, they have this 10 most common mistakes communities make, and one of them is just put in 1 or 2 speed humps, and that's the reason, because people would go over it and then speed up afterwards. So you have to control the speed in the corridor you're trying to.
Thanks.
But in cities they do that with raised crosswalks.
Yeah, I was just saying, I know that in parts of the country I've driven, and they would have the little bumper strip cape in the pavement. It makes a little sound when you drive over it. Yep. And they would usually have 1 or 2 of those on either end of near an intersection or a village center or something. But anyway, I get the point. I think that we really, to try to stay on schedule, we ought to look for any comments and questions from folks in the audience before we get back to the board.
I can go after.
Yeah, we'll get back to the board. Yeah, go ahead, sir. If you would state your name too and where you live.
My name is Tom Blakely. I'm in Bennington. I want to speak from a runner's perspective. I run through Old Bennington. I have run down this section of Monument. It can be harrowing. And the biggest problem is not just the speed of the vehicles, but the lack of shoulder, particularly on inside curves, where there's just no place to go for the runner, especially if it drops off, and it does in several places. So I think this would help. I would love to see the lanes narrowed so there was a little more shoulder to give a little safety margin there. I noticed that there's 1 pedestrian crash and no injury recorded, and I'm wondering if that was me. I was coming south on Monument, intending to turn left on Dewey, and gained a little speed on the downhill and wasn't able to negotiate the turn, and I hit a vehicle stopped at the stop sign, and I was probably going, 5-6 miles an hour at that point, maybe a little faster downhill, and I broke 9 ribs. So it doesn't take 25 miles an hour to cause what I considered, from what it felt like, a fairly serious injury for me. So I think this is a great idea. I'd love to see it implemented.
Thank you. And also thank you for clearing up that mystery in the records, because I noticed that there was 1 pedestrian who was hit, but then it didn't say whether you were injured or not in the records.
I wouldn't guarantee it's me, but it could have been.
If it is, it was a pedestrian versus vehicle, not the other way around, right. I think.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, sure, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Ethan Beal Brown, and I actually live on Monument Avenue, so I wanted to take a moment to say thank you for considering this. I really appreciate it, and I think a safer road really seems very exciting to me, and I think the improvement in rural character is also a really lovely possibility. I think I wanted to just add a little bit of data for what it's worth to the question of, is this the most safe and effective way of getting to the hospital, specifically for people heading and making this decision between taking 7 or making this cut through. And so I just had a quick look at Google Maps, and it looks like directly south of the split, where you can either take Monument Avenue and go down this road or head north on 7, it's exactly 4 minutes in both cases. So it's really encouraging that the hospital has taken some time to consider this carefully, because certainly we wouldn't want to make it any harder for someone in a medical emergency in a private vehicle to get to the hospital. And one thought about that is that given the sort of the appearance of a speed-safe road here, that in a medical emergency, I never really had to race to a hospital myself, but I imagine that you'd be thinking a little less carefully and driving a little too fast. And to, encourage people to be on a road like 7, which is much more designed for safe, rapid travel, 50 miles an hour, seems like an added benefit to disincentivizing that type of traffic going on this road.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Yep, Martha, go ahead.
Martha Mackey, Bennington, Vermont. I'm so sorry you put all the things I care about on one agenda. I'm wondering, did you mention what the cost of a speed hump is?
Yeah. In Pittsfield, that project that I showed you, they said it was about $2,000 to $2,500 each.
So, and then can you give an estimate on what the cost would be of redoing the lines on the road in some configuration?
I would say 0, because you would do it as part of a paving project. So when you pave it, you would repaint it anyway. So you would just paint them in a little bit tighter.
Yeah, because I'm just wondering, about cost saving and about, trial runs on things. A sign costs $3,500. The radar sign costs $3,500. The lines don't cost anything. The speed humps cost so much. And so I'm just wondering about, if we could do the thing with the least cost and least effort first, and then see what happens.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions from the audience? Will? Go ahead.
Will Greer, North Bennington. So my question here is this going to be just a phase 1 plan of Monument in general? I'm getting a nod.
Excuse me, Will, could you speak into the mic for me?
Yes. Yep. Sorry. No, I was just asking if this was the first phase of the plan for Monument Ave, because I've received, I'm not going to say the exact number, but several people, mainly going up towards Route 9, that have had similar issues raised, like in this sector of the road. So this is just the first part?
Well, this section was the only section that went through the traffic calming policy, where the residents wrote a petition. They petitioned for this project. There have not been other sections of Monument Ave yet that have done that, but they could do that.
Okay. And then second question, you said that you weren't able to go through Google to get it changed or rerouted. Did I hear that correctly?
Well, I haven't tried, and I honestly don't know how to go about that.
I will help you.
Except for slowing speeds, that would, if you make it a little bit slower, Google will automatically route you on the faster route, I assume.
Yeah, I'll help with that.
Oh, great.
I know who to go to for that.
Well, thank you.
So, Will, if you can do that, make them change half of the addresses in Bennington back to Bennington instead of Woodford. That would be helpful, too.
That is very confusing.
Yeah.
Jim?
Thanks. Yeah, I'm going to turn it back to the board for any follow-up and consideration of any action. So, Ed, go ahead.
So let me mention that the Village of Old Bennington has been looking at these same problems on the roads that the village manages itself. That group of residents elected to take some of the same steps steps here. First one being radar feedback signs. And the plan there is to buy one with several installations available. So there'll be a radar feedback sign between Elm and Main. And that will be one installation, and then there will be a second one at the top of Monument, during that straightaway between Bank Street and the Monument, and there'll be a third install on Bank Street, and again, that radar feedback sign will move from place to place as those residents think it's appropriate. And that's the first phase in Old Bennington that's being considered. So this makes a lot of sense.
Oh, good, thank you.
Can I, and this is in the way of maybe making sure that we're moving in the right direction for a motion on this, but if we were to acquire and install the radar feedback sign relatively soon, do we anticipate that there is time after that's been installed to get data on how effective it's been before the paving project happens, and we would need to make a decision about the speed humps?
Yeah, I think there will be time. My understanding is the water line project will go out to bid soon I think they expect to do that this summer, and then patch it, and then do a repaving the following year, or at the end of next year.
Yeah.
And that'll be enough time to do another speed study.
It may be optimistic to think that we'll get to the waterline project this summer, but that is the hope. Right now, we're still waiting for the state to approve the final design, and unfortunately, that often takes much longer than it should. So we are kind of in a holding pattern, and so I don't want to give anybody any false hope about how quickly that project will move forward, because it's completely out of the town's hands right now. But we are pushing, and we would really very much like to do that as soon as possible. But I would think there's more than enough time to evaluate the data and make a final determination about the speed humps. So tonight's probably a fairly easy decision. It's really just about proceeding with the radar feedback sign and allowing and directing staff and BCRC to collect data to bring back to you to make a final decision about whether or not additional measures are needed and when they should be installed. But certainly we would want to make that decision before we paved.
Jackie?
Thanks. This section of road, I think somebody touched on this briefly, but you said that the residents in the area that petitioned, this was the section that they had identified, but that seems unclear to me, like why it doesn't extend, if this section of road is has people traveling faster, I would think naively that south of here they would be traveling that same speed. North of here they'd travel at that same speed. But you also mentioned that there was some hills involved. So is this like a case where like there's a hill on both sides that comes down into this section of road?
Yeah, there's a big hill. Whoop, I'm always doing this backwards. There's a big hill here, just to the south of Southshire Drive, and it's pretty much downhill all the way down to the bottom. So I think people get going pretty fast going down the hill.
Got it. All right, well, that makes sense.
And then the one thing that this section has that the other sections of Monument Ave don't have is a lot of crashes. So a lot of the crashes on Monument Ave are concentrated in this project area.
Okay. If you have, I'm happy to hear about it, but I'm assuming that when you looked at the 10 years of crash data, did you notice time-based trends? Like, have there been changes to this section of the road 5 years ago that have either helped or harmed, or?
Not really. It's been pretty consistent crashes over the years. Yeah.
Okay. Then I think, I'm also on board with having the radar feedback sign, and then evaluating that and getting some more current data, say from the past 6 months or so to then move forward with the decision on speed humps.
That sounded like a motion.
I will make that a motion.
Is there a second to the motion?
I was for the discussion.
Okay, Clark, you seconded for discussion? So
Well, I'll second for the discussion, yeah. I want to kind of roll back to Ms. Mackey's comment about procedure and this issue. I think one of the things that I take back is people have to get involved. We're talking about public safety and issues. Although people think I'm a know-it-all, I really don't know what's happening in all the streets in this town. And I think it's important that the residents, if they're aware of the circumstance, they need to get involved. And we can't help people if they don't bring these concerns to us. And it may be burdensome, but in my mind, anything worth doing, it takes a little bit of effort to kind of go out of your way. So I think the process, we belabored that, I think, multiple meetings, and it's a wonderful process, but it's not going to work unless people get involved. And we're talking about the bottom line is we're going to have to spend money and time and resources to make these changes. So the people who have been getting involved, giving us feedback in this direction, I think we give them a sense of ownership. When they look out and see our DPW guys out there working, and say, hey, that's my money, but it's doing the things that are important to me or that are important to my neighbors. So I can't belabor the point enough that the people in this town who have concerns, please get involved. If it's difficult, it's time consuming, I understand that, but if it's important, you gotta get involved. You just can't say, woe is me, woe is me. We're here to serve you, and we can't serve you if we don't have all the information that's important to you.
thanks, Clay. Thank you. Any further discussion? Nancy, question?
Did you mention the average ticket count or traffic count on the road right now?
That's a good question. I think it's about 1,800 vehicles a day. I don't have it in front of me, but...
I'm sure since SVC closed, there's been a big decrease. And when whatever happens up there opens, I think there's going to be another big increase there. So,
yeah, it could be.
Whatever we're getting for numbers now, you have to try to imagine what you would add to it when whatever happens up on that property goes forward.
That's a good point.
And to Nancy's point, we should have
1,900. Jonah looked it up.
we should have pretty good numbers because that project is moving forward, and obviously with an Act 250 application necessary, they'll have to have a detailed traffic analysis, so we'll have that information.
But we wouldn't have had numbers back from when SVC was open.
I'm sure we could look back at historical traffic data, couldn't we, Mark?
We could. Actually, it's interesting. I think 1975, they were 850 vehicles per day, and now they're about 1,900.
Yeah. So we could certainly look at.
Yeah, you can look at.
Yep.
You can look at historic data.
Bats Trail Network is very popular. And further discussion of the motion, which is to pursue the acquisition, the purchase and installation of the radar feedback sign, and then collect data to evaluate subsequent actions. No? I'll ask for all in favor of that motion. Please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? No. So unanimous. And thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very
Mark,
much.
and everyone who came out to participate. So I have done such a good job chairing this meeting that we are only about an hour behind schedule.
Good job.
The next item up for discussion is the current use and policies associated with the remote access and participation for select board meetings, and if and how that might change in the future. And I think Jonah is going to give us a little overview and talk about possible options.
Hi, Jonah Spivak, Communications Coordinator again. So you saw the memo in your packets. The short and sweet of it is, due to our technology upgrades, we are now able to have a much better experience with...
Jonah, I'm going to have to ask you to wait a second. Folks in the
Guys,
back?
can we not have side conversations, please, in the back? Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Nope, no problem at all. Thanks to our technology upgrades, we now have the ability to host much better hybrid meetings, which provides a much better experience for people that are online. That could be used both for members of the Select Board who want to come in remotely, or alternatively, it could be used for members of the public. Back in 2024, the Vermont legislature did pass an update to the Vermont meeting law requiring that select board meetings and other non-advisory board meetings be available in a hybrid fashion upon request. And what the law currently states is that any resident of the geographical area where those meetings are happening can request an accommodation for a hybrid meeting as long as they give 2 days' notice. And in terms of my recommendations, looking forward, one is, I should mention that we've probably had about maybe a dozen hybrid meetings since 2024 upon request. Looking forward, we certainly could go to a more flexible model where if people wanted to request a hybrid meeting, right now it's 2 days advance notice. We could shorten that to be the end of day Friday to make a request, or at the discretion of the Select Board, we could go to having all meetings be hybrid at some point. And I dare say that ultimately we will get there. It's just a question of when, and that really is the purview of the Select Board.
Thanks, Jonah. Yeah, let's hold a discussion. So Ed, yeah, what do you?
So the process that we go through for a hybrid meeting at this point, even though it's a lot better than it was, it's still kind of clunky. And the idea that we would make some meetings hybrid accessible with notice, but not in any other situation, concerns me. I am in favor of an all or nothing. If something came up on the agenda this afternoon when someone was perusing and they realized that it was a topic of interest to them, but they couldn't get here tonight, it would have been too late for them to participate by Zoom, according to the way it is now. So I think we have to really think about making that eventual sooner rather than later, and let's not wait until we have examples of why. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, from my perspective, and this is one of the really challenging issues that we're faced, because I always would want to err on the side of greater accessibility to our meetings. At the same time, I recognize that there are no end of challenges with that, with the fact that the Zoom feed or whatever has to be monitored, by somebody. So we need additional staffing to make sure that happens, and also the potential of really substantially increasing the participating audience, which seems like a very good thing, unless, we get to the point where we can't conduct business because we have so much participation and so many hands up and comments, and so we have to then cut people off, and then how do they participate? Do they then, email their comments in, which if we want to read them, then we can't take action at that meeting. So there's a lot of things. One thing I wanted to ask is if we've reached out to people in the disability community to ask them, how much of an issue is it now that, how much of a barrier is there to participation, and what they might suggest or be interested in?
Well, I would reiterate that currently, anyone who's a resident in the geographical area can request that accommodation. We have not had many requests to date, but certainly anyone could. They don't have to be disabled. It could be, but I do agree that
Part of it, I'm a little bit worried about, like, is the barrier to access, because it's a bit of a barrier to just have to, like, call the town office and file a formal request and put your name out there. I mean, it may be the best that we can do, but it's kind of a big step for a lot of people to do that, where they could, if the Zoom link was just published with the agenda, they could just log in and participate without an extra barrier.
That's correct. Yep.
Oh, good. Because I really want this is,
No, I know
like
you
I said,
really
this is a
didn't,
really
but-
tough issue for me, so I hope that some other people have some ideas. Nancy?
I have to say, it's very disappointing. We had a year and a half to discuss the different types of equipment that were available, what we wanted to achieve for an end result, and what we wanted to spend. We never had a single discussion. And I did ask in the summer of 2024 that we bring in a lawyer so the board and the public could have a discussion and understand all this. And it's a shame, here it is, 2026, and we're finally getting around to it. I think it worked very well during COVID, when people knew they could call in, and you called in when the agenda item you wanted to talk about, you called in a little before, you waited for somebody to answer. I'm interested on here, it says state law says we have to have 2 days, but we can have 1 day.
Could have no days.
The minimum requirement, or the state requirement is 2 days' notice, but it's up to us what we do.
Okay, so we could...
You can make it be as much or as little or no requirement.
But we can't make it be more of a...
Right,
more than
can't be more strict.
Okay.
Yeah, no more than 2 days.
Correct.
So we could try it like we did during COVID, because a lot of older people, not just seniors, don't go out at night. They don't like to drive after dark, especially in the winter, and we've heard that from people, seniors who come in the summer. I think there are people who a lot of times find out at the last minute what's on the agenda. Well, if they didn't call by Friday or Thursday, they can't call in. And I would think, we talk about we want to get people involved, but we just had 7,000 voters who didn't vote for town meeting. Maybe if there was something on the agenda and somebody could call in with a comment or question, maybe we could have, more interaction. I'd try it hybrid right out of the gate and see how it went.
It does make sense. I mean, obviously, our ultimate goal is to want to have as much accessibility as possible. So maybe another way to think about it is we could offer it and then see how many people take advantage of it. And if it's not being used, you could always reevaluate based on that also.
But a person can call in and not have to have a cell phone to do it, right? If they have a regular phone, there are people who don't have...
You would need to touch something that is a touch tone. If you have a rotary-style phone, I'm not sure that would...
Well, yes. But nobody needs to have a fancy Apple phone or anything like that. They can
Currently,
call.
that's correct. We're using the Zoom platform. You can call in using a cell phone.
Clark?
Yeah, this discussion is not unique. In my other position with the Veterans Home, we've been waging a war trying to meet the requirements with this. Part of the problem, to kind of lead back to what Nancy brought in, there are these mandates without specifications. The state just threw this out and said, you guys figure it out. So I think now there are some more fleshing out occurring from the state level, but a lot of state entities are in the same boat we're in. So what we've done at the Vets Home is we basically, similar to what Jonah just mentioned, we advertise or announce what we're doing, and folks have the option of calling in. We've spent a considerable amount of money to upgrade to full spectrum hybrid meetings. All our meetings are now hybrid. For the last 2 months, I don't think we've had one person call in, but it's there. But I want to let folks know it's not like the town of Bennington or the select board or our town staff's been slacking. A lot of what's gone on here is we've been kind of like shouting into the wind. You want us to fix things, but how?
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. I mean, I just want to make that clear that this is not unique to us, and I don't see any evidence that those at this desk or on our town staff have been remiss in addressing these concerns.
Yeah, and I thank you for that. And I did want to mention that, in fact, last summer, we did, as part of implementing the state laws, we did do a memo to the Select Board outlining what hybrid capacities we have available, how we were addressing to stay in compliance with the law, which was following that. Anyone that requested, it was available to them. So it didn't come out quite out of nowhere. We did implement that policy last summer in direct response to that new law.
Jackie?
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think it's fantastic that we can offer this. I think it's really great that we have some new equipment that makes that experience better. Certainly, the last time that we used that new equipment here, it was better, so that's great. I haven't used it from the other side. I imagine the experience is better from that side too.
You can now hear what's going on, which is the key thing.
And by better, I want to be clear, because like for me, best is still like in person, right? I think there's so much more that I can get out of what somebody's trying to communicate in person, but I understand accommodations. I'd love actually to demo that before we like just move forward like adopting it. So maybe I will be remote in 2 weeks. We'll see. There are some open questions for me too about how that would change some of our procedures or policies or how we do things. So, for example, how does somebody sign up for public comment and that piece of it? Like, maybe concerns about making the meetings more accessible to people that are not Bennington residents. That's, a consideration. The notes in here about staff time are interesting to me too. I think maybe there's a potential that if we had this hybrid option for every meeting, there might be some cost savings in other places that could help balance that a little bit. And then this maybe isn't super related. Well, I guess it is related to moving to having a hybrid option at every meeting. But right now, some of our sound in the room and the microphones, and particularly the one you're using, Jonah, when folks come up to share, unless they're right on the microphone, it's really challenging to hear them. So I don't know if there's some other upgrades that might need to be considered in tandem with approaching having this as an option on every meeting. So I think I'm with you, Jim. I think there's a lot of great things to consider here, but I still have a lot of questions that aren't answered.
Are there any specific questions you'd like me to answer right now out of that?
Yeah, sorry, I think none of that's a specific question. If there's anything that you'd like to address, I'd love to hear it.
Well, regarding the sound, if you're happy with the quality of the sound on CAT TV, then you will be happy with the sound on the online experience using the hybrid meetings, because we're using the same soundboard. So the equipment for the people online, they're hearing exactly what CAT TV is hearing. We've not had a lot of complaints from CAT TV in terms of the sound issues. The CAT TV person is saying, no, he can hear right now when things are a problem. So while our speakers in the room may not be doing an excellent job with this speaker, it is enough for it to come through clearly for CAT TV and would be for online. Regarding town staffing, at a minimum, you'd be adding about 300 hours of work for myself or someone else to manage these remote meetings. So that is a consideration. That's 300 hours I wouldn't spend doing something else. But that's certainly probably where we're going to get to at some point anyway. So we do internally have a plan that would be a shared responsibility. I would have backup within town staff for when I'm not available, for example. But that is a consideration. One thing that was mentioned that resonates with me is that, well, having it available, but if nobody's using it, that does seem like not a great use of town resources. Maybe maybe if we were to try a trial period to get a sense of what the usage is like, that would be useful. And it could also be that maybe we should just eliminate the day requirement. I had suggested reducing it to one day, Friday afternoon, but we could also have it be up until 4:30 on Monday. If you haven't decided by then if you're going to attend the select board meeting, you're probably not going to anyway. So another...
I don't know about that, Jonah, because I still think there's that extra step of having to call the town office. I mean, I almost wonder if you wanted to have a trial period, maybe you do a trial period of a few meetings where it's just available. People can just zoom in and see what the usage is in that case. And if it's really high, and maybe it would help us figure out what some of the issues are too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just worry about, doing a test run when you've got barriers that make it unlikely.
No, I actually agree with what you're suggesting.
Yeah. Okay.
That was actually, I meant to express that as my original suggestion, that we could see how it goes, but if nobody's calling in, then...
Yeah. Clark?
One thing I'd be interested in seeing with this is there are folks who maybe are attending but not participating. If we're doing this hybrid thing where somebody could just sign in and just monitor what's going on and see a flow rate. I think on Cat TV there's a count. You can see how many folks are watching at that time. As part of this, we're doing this, let's say we do this hybrid thing as you mentioned, and there's no participation, where we look and see there's 150 people or so consistently following what's going on. That way, yeah, I'm being, I know, hyperbolic there. But I mean, that'd be kind of a wonderful thing if we could look and say, hey, we've switched over to this new methodology and our audience has increased. And my personal goal is the maximum number of people possible, at least listening or watching. If not participating, would be great, but listening and watching, I think, is a good start. If we could somehow get a gauge and we can say to people, hey.
We would see exactly how many people would join the meeting.
Right. Maybe the thing to do is before we do jump right into it, to sit down with Jonah and Dan and Janet, a couple board members, and kind of figure out how it would be structured. How it would work. Who would be staffing it? Like what the format would be? You were talking earlier about like a webinar format versus.
I could speak to that right now if you'd like.
Yeah.
The way it would work is people could log into Zoom. They would be attendees at a Zoom webinar meeting. The webinar format allows us to have presenters on the call, and that could be people like select board members. They would be visible on screen for the entirety of the meeting. They'd be able to unmute themselves at their will. So a board member logging into that format would be just like any Zoom meeting. And then for the general public, we would use the attendee function, which means anyone can call in, they're automatically admitted into the room, and then they would raise their hand to be recognized. So for example, during public comment at the start of the meeting, after people have signed up for public comment, when you make the call to the public, anyone else who'd like to comment in the room, once you could also ask the same thing, is there anyone online with their hand raised? And in fact, you'll be able to see it on the screen if anyone's got their little hands up. And then at that point, we give them the ability to unmute themselves to make any comments that they would like to make.
So I have a comment. We have just the access all the time, and people are signing in, and we're having staff time doing that, and then people are signing in, not participating. And then we're using Cat TV to also do that. That seemed like redundancy to me. So that's concerning to me. So we have Cat TV here, we're paying Cat TV, but then we also have staff time. We're using staff time. So that seems a little, I don't know, that's concerning to me. I think there might be a better way to do that.
The main difference would be allowing people to public comment, would be an additional ability that they don't currently have on Cat TV.
yes, I agree with that, but if they're not using that access.
Yep, you are correct. I mean, there are a lot of ways people can currently view the meetings without having to be here in person. We're adding another.
If we did it and saw that there were, 50 people watching via our Zoom link or whatever, but they didn't participate, then it really is just a duplication of effort. So, but we don't know until we try.
Jim, I know Nancy was...
Oh, Nancy.
Well, no, everybody else go. I'll just wait till everybody's done. Go ahead, Dan.
I'm done. I just wanted to,
Okay.
because I know you're trying to raise your hand.
Well, a resident of the geographic area in which the public body has jurisdiction.
That's correct.
So that's sounds to me like someone who lives in Bennington that wants to participate. Is that what that means?
To request an accommodation, you do have to live in the geographical area served by that. But what we're talking about, if we just open it up, obviously there is no requirement. If it's just a link that anyone could join at any time, then that would be a moot point.
Well, what
Similar to in person, somebody from out of town could walk in the door and give us their opinion, so that doesn't change the dynamics of who people are, I don't think.
Well, but
we're not required.
What I just realized, the difference between this and COVID, during COVID, you were already watching the meeting. And you would watch the meeting and call and wait for somebody. Now people are going to be able to just sign on and be parked on the screen for the whole meeting, even if they don't want to talk.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't think we need that.
Well, they might not know if they want to talk or not until they get into
Right,
the
because
meeting.
a similar situation, just like in public comment, there's an opportunity there, after various agenda items, you can also allow people online to weigh in.
But that's where you have the problem. Somebody may doing something on Zoom during a meeting.
Could you repeat that?
Somebody doing something, knowing the technology to bomb a Zoom, bomb the select board
So
meeting.
that's a great question, and that is one of the reasons we're using the webinar format, because it allows us to control a little better. So for example, any attendee that logs in, they have no ability to start their video, which is a key piece. That's where a lot of the Zoom bombing comes in. But they can still raise their hand, and nor can they unmute themselves. The only way they can unmute themselves is with permission, and I would not even recommend allowing video for attendees. They would be voice only to comment, to prevent that sort of activity.
And a comment on the presentation where we use the equipment. When documents were put up there, they were so small that I don't think anybody in the room could read it. So we're...
Yeah, I agree with that. That didn't work very well. So what we're going to be doing is we'll continue to use the large projector screen for presentations. And the small screen, you'll just see the heads for the Zoom meeting participants. And for the people on Zoom, we'll have a camera pointed at the screen so they'll be able to see what's on the screen.
And the concern I had when I first read this law was the wheels were being put in motion, so people elected or appointed to local boards could stay home and participate remotely rather than being here in person. I don't think anybody is that special or important that they should stay home. I think they should be here with the other board members and to face the public. So is this something that is allowed right now if somebody on the board wants to stay home?
Yes.
Yes.
And it happens with other committees too, correct?
Well, the law only refers to non-advisory committees, so that's ones that have decision-making authority. So other committees that only provide recommendations, for example, like the Energy Committee or the Historic Preservation Commission, they don't have that requirement. It's just for non-advisory, which is a weird way of phrasing. It's those boards that have the ability to actually do stuff, those are the ones that are required to abide by this.
But they can also stay home rather than show up in person.
Yes.
That is correct.
Oh, I think it's important for the public to be aware of that.
We have occasionally had accommodations for board members who are traveling, for example, to be able to participate.
Well, I could see if you're out of town occasionally working, if you're homesick or injured. But I think a person that could be at a meeting but decides they're going to stay home, just because we have the technology to do it, I just think it's a lack of respect for everybody else at the meeting.
Yeah. Are there other, Ed?
I'm going to go back to what I said a few minutes ago, and that is that I think that this needs to be buttoned up, it needs to be made available, and then it needs to be there permanently. I appreciate that we're going to check and see what the use of it is and perhaps make adaptations or alterations to it, but I think that this has to be in place all the time for any meeting without notice that a member of the public can participate. And I'm going to feel very strongly about that. I think that's the spirit of the law, and that's what my head tells me is important.
And we can do that as soon as the next meeting, so
But
it's really up to you folks.
I would agree, but if we have too many people wanting to participate, we can limit it to Bennington residents, correct?
Well, the only limitation was who could request a meeting. Once we put the link out there, I don't know how we'd be able to control or enforce that.
That would be a good problem to have, but I think we should be keeping that as an item that we need to resolve should we get to that point.
You know, if you have too many, if you have a really hot topic and a lot of people want to call in, and we've got to watch the time in some cases, you know, if it should be limited to people in Bennington.
We haven't done that with people that come to the meetings, even when there's a hot topic. So I hear the concern. I think it's probably going to be a long shot that it gets to be that way, except for on those occasions when the topic is very either contested or people feel strongly about it one way or the other. But the law, the way that I understand it, is designed to give the public the same access remotely that it gives in person. And we don't have a traffic cop standing at the door here asking for place of residence. We do ask people to tell us where they live when they speak, because that's captured on the record.
And you could say that, you know, for the last 250 years, whatever this, you know, people haven't had the ability to do this, and so it's worked fine, right? But I don't know if it has. And now we do have the ability, quite frankly, and I think that we really owe it to a segment of the population, like, you know, Nancy mentioned, you know, the seniors and people who have some, you know, transportation challenges that just can't get out to the meeting, that have essentially been excluded from participating in the meetings before. And I think now that we have the opportunity to make it possible for them to participate, we ought to move as aggressively as we can in that direction.
And I think that the concern that we heard about members of this body choosing to dial in from their couch rather than come and be in this room with us is well taken. And, you know, if we're going to make that option available, it is available. I think we have to sort of rely on each other and our own sort of ethics and commitment. We were all elected to show up here on the second and fourth Monday of every month, and then any other thing that we needed to do in between for the town. So Nancy, I agree with you. This is not, I don't think this should be designed or packaged or marketed as a way for us to sit home instead of showing up here.
I think that will show people who they should vote for.
I was looking across the board at a lot of boards and committees around the state. And just to clarify, as far as the sound goes, anybody who's ever watched a select board meeting at home on TV, a computer, iPad, sound has never been an issue. The issue has always been the sound in this room, because the acoustics have always been awful since the firehouse was built. And we've never finished putting the panels in the ceiling, have we?
Well, we started with one phase, and we did the second phase, so it could be improved even further, yes.
Well, for those of us who are hearing impaired, it is very difficult to be at a meeting in this room. And it gets old very fast to keep telling people, please speak into the microphone so you hear yourselves. And I realize if people don't do it on a regular basis, they don't know how to do it. But I started asking 4 years ago for this to get addressed. And the fact that we're here 4 years later, and we still haven't bothered to finish doing what did help a little bit last year, So I'm asking in the next 3 months, we finish getting those panels up in the ceiling. We should be trying to follow the ADA requirements, and the fact that this hasn't been finished,
I think the best time to bring that up would have been at budget time when we could budget for it, but we could certainly, if you folks wanted us to try to find contingency fund money, we could do
Well,
that.
we should have $17,000 left in the town emergency fund.
I mean, we can talk about that, but I mean, question is, have we actually done an acoustical study of this room to determine what would work? Because I don't think we want to spend a bunch of money on panels and stick them up and find it doesn't make any difference, right?
They've tried multiple things, Jim, since the firehouse was built.
I don't like this room any more than you, but it's the room that we've got right now. But, I also don't want to spend a bunch of money on something that's not going to work.
So we're not going to try to meet ADA requirements?
No. If I
Yeah,
may,
Clark, go ahead.
These blue panels on the wall and these white panels, there has been efforts to improve the acoustics in here. And again, going back to my other board meet, we're having the same problem in the vet's home. You have rooms that were not designed with the latest and greatest technology. A 50-year-old room, which of course isn't, and you're trying to bring it up to today's standards. And like everything, it's all about time and money, which mysteriously, we never seem to have enough of both. So, yeah, there are some issues here, but I do believe the acoustics in this room are better now than when I first started coming to meetings here 4 years ago. I do have some hearing issues, but luckily you guys all are on the good side. so this side of the room, no, this side of the room, so I can appreciate exactly what Nancy's saying, but I can say that efforts have been made to improve the acoustics.
And getting back to the topic of discussion is, do the acoustics in this room cause a problem for a remote meeting? So I don't know about that. But question is, where do we want to go with remote access to our meetings?
So I guess, not to belabor the point, but I think the concern about the acoustics that I've heard from folks watching online is maybe less about the acoustics and more just members that sometimes forget to turn their microphones on and stuff. So that's obviously squarely on us to remember to do that, but obviously that much more important as online participants become more plentiful. Just to keep things rolling,
Yes, let's do that.
I will now make a motion that our next 4 meetings offer a hybrid option with no sign-up necessary, and then we determine what to do following that.
I second that motion.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second to go full hybrid for the next
4 meetings?
4 meetings.
With no advance notice
And then we will
required.
evaluate participation in issues. Okay. And there's been a second discussion?
That'll give us some
Yes.
data. It
So
won't give
as
it-
someone that has was elected during the COVID era, thank you. Someone that came in as the COVID era and was on Zoom for quite some time, it was quite difficult to do a Zoom meeting. So I wanted to address something as somebody that would come in as a select board member, and we didn't actually address as a select board member that would be attending as a member. So I'm just wondering how a select board member would be attending and voting. And I thought this and talked to my husband and talked about how committees would vote. And committees, they come in and they have 3 votes on committees, and that's it. And the floors, they are not allowed to come in at all. So my thought was, if this came to this vote, that a select board member would be able to come in by hybrid and vote 3 times, and that's it. That would be my thought. And I'm not in favor of the motion as it is. I would take the suggestion as noted by town staff but that's not a hill I'm going to die on, but that would be my suggestion. Any thoughts on what I'm suggesting for select board members?
If I may, I think we're limiting access, and you guys are spending a lot of time talking about limiting access when we don't know yet that that's a problem. Let's gather the data, but if I'm out with a serious medical issue, but I want to maintain my level of responsibility on this board, and what would that look like? Would that require a variance to a policy? I just think that we're going into some weeds that are not necessary. I think that we got to fix our technology problem and make it available permanently to everyone and expect our board members to show up here rather than dial in from their couches.
Can I respond to that? Because I was the one that quipped that I would show up remotely to the next meeting, and that's not because I intend to attend that way moving forward, but more just to experience the other side of it for myself once. But I do think we have had situations where members of this board have been perhaps under the weather a little, or also, and this one is more fresh in my mind, folks that are traveling, that are out of the state and would still like to come to this meeting as a voting member of this body. And so I certainly wouldn't be in favor of any limitations on elected officials. I also think that could get really sticky when you start considering issues of quorum. In order to be present, a member has to be able to hear and be heard. And so if you limit their ability to participate in this meeting in some way, then they're perhaps not in attendance, and then how many members are in attendance and quorum issues. And we don't have to go there, I don't think. I don't foresee it being a big problem, and
My thought was that they can attend, so we have a quorum, but not vote.
I think that's counterproductive.
I think at this point, worrying too much about physical attendance by board members is a bit speculative, and I think that we can get back to focusing on the motion, which is to try a full hybrid meeting for the next 4 meetings and gather data and then discuss any issues that come up.
Can I just say that I would be in favor of the motion if at the end of the 4 weeks we would make a determination to continue. I don't want there to be a gap in our offering. So we may, to Jackie's motion, we may be able to host this meeting in a hybrid fashion for the next 4 meetings. We'll have some information about what took place, but let's not wait 3 or 4 more meetings to discuss that data and alter the plan. I think that meeting number 5 has to reflect what we learned.
I agree. I mean, we find it's really valuable.
I would accept that as a friendly amendment to my motion that it be on an agenda 5 meetings from now.
Do you think 4 meetings is enough, or should we go 6?
Well,
splitting hairs.
Let's see how it goes after 4. At the 5th meeting, we can decide, or after the 4th, we can decide we need more information.
I think it should go on the agenda for the 4th meeting so that we can not miss the 5th meeting being offered in hybrid.
We'll assume we're going to keep going hybrid unless we say we're not. Okay, so any further discussion on the motion? Yes, Sarah?
Yes, so with that assumption that we're going to keep going hybrid, I think I'm going to vote no.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and opposed? 1. Okay, the motion carries 5-1. And we'll talk about how we're going to implement that.
Sure, and Joan and I can do some research on best practices and get those to the board so that you folks can start to think about how you might want to proceed in the future. We all thought it would be quite a big change when we did remote meetings during COVID, and we seemed to get through it, so I'm sure we'll figure this out too. We just want to be thoughtful about it, so thank you for the
Have we talked to any of our neighboring towns about this issue? And so let's factor in what we learned there.
Most of them don't have the significant turnout or the lengthy meetings that we have. But Jonah did reach out, and most of them do remote meetings. Yep.
Yeah, the short answer is most towns are doing it at this point.
Yeah.
But of
I'm not
course, not
surprised.
all towns have the Cat TV and the various other things, but, you know.
And it's a good problem that we have a public that wants to join us and work with us.
Absolutely. We just want to make sure we manage it and are staffed up for it.
Could be good feedback on the length of our meetings. We can, in real time, see how many people start dropping off the screen.
We just have to watch our audience here.
Okay. All right, then I think we need to move on to the manager's report.
Okay, I'm going to try to be really quick, even though there's a lot of information here, but I have 2 action items this evening. One of them is approval of the latest opioid settlement with 6 new defendants. Although it sounds like a lot, $97.6 million national settlement. Unfortunately, our share is only $6,900. Not nothing, but not nearly the $97.6 million that makes it, that headline. So all I'm asking for this evening is for you folks to sign a resolution, which I'll pass along, authorizing the town manager to sign the necessary documents so that the town can be awarded these settlement funds. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask, but it's fairly straightforward, and we don't have any wiggle room. We either accept this or not. So I would ask for a motion to accept the settlement funds.
So moved.
Second, and discussion, Clark?
Right. I'm looking at the last line. Funds shall be used for approved opioid remediation purposes such as treatment, prevention, and harm reduction initiatives.
Yep.
Who or where are those items going to take place? Or who's going to do this? Are we giving money to community groups?
So that is a very good question, Clark. So all of this money goes into a reserve account, and we will soon be discussing how those funds are distributed to a group or groups to carry out the purpose of those funds. Right now, we have about $168,000. We have some more coming. We have this amount coming, and there will be. I know that at least one organization has made a preliminary proposal, and we'll be bringing that to you folks to review in the next couple of meetings. But that's how that will be done. All of these opioid settlements have the same exhibit for how those funds can be used. So it's not complicated. I mean, if you can use the funds from one settlement, you can use them from the other settlement for the same purposes. So at least they've made that fairly straightforward.
Did I hear you correctly that we already have $160,000 in a reserve?
We have $168,000 in a reserve from previous amounts that have been coming into the town from settlement. And we have talked about opioid settlement, yeah. Yep, and we do expect more. It'll trickle in over the next 15 years. Unfortunately, it's not going to be a lot in the next few years, but there'll be some trickling in, and we'll certainly be talking about that when we discuss the proposals to fund efforts in town to address opioid issues.
Yeah, that's, again, in my mind, it was like, that kind of money, well, we'll get around to that. Hard to grab onto that, well, we're going to get this money, but we haven't decided who, when, or where we're going to spend it. Which I realize is reality is a little worrisome to me. That we've got all this money and,
Sounds like a good future agenda item to me.
Yeah, I think that's coming up for agenda item discussion the next, like Dan said, a couple of meetings.
Yeah, I know that the chair has been approached, and we've been trying to work with those folks to put together a comprehensive request for you guys for you folks to look at. But that will be coming up.
yeah, to be continued, yeah. I can support this with that understanding that it's going to be an agenda item that we will absolutely.
Well, so are you suggesting that we have, that we decide how we would spend this money before we get it too?
No, I'm just saying that we're adding, I'm saying the fact we've got this huge reserve, we're adding to it.
Yeah, go ahead.
What are we doing with it? I'm being told that there are discussions with groups that are, I guess, going to show up on the agenda. That's what.
Yes.
Yep, it will be an agenda
Do we need
item
a
for you folks.
motion then?
I think we need a motion to
think I made the motion.
accept it. I think we have a motion.
Do we? So second that motion?
To accept the $6,900.
And I'll second that.
Yeah.
And we were discussing, here and there. All in favor of accepting the $6,900?
Aye.
I just ask you to sign this resolution, and I've got to send that to the attorneys, and they can get the paperwork going. The next action item is a request to close a portion of Depot Street for the Southern Vermont Homebrew Festival 2026. This is an annual event. It's the same as last year as far as the closure request, is to close a portion of Depot Street, essentially from the GBIX driveway down to the Village Garage Distillery driveway. All access to all the businesses in that vicinity will remain open. There will be one driveway closed to the Anytime Fitness, but they have a secondary driveway which will allow them access to the facility. So I would be requesting a motion to approve that closure of Depot Street as requested, obviously subject to the BPD's approval under their special events policy. I've already received an email, and I think I included in the packet from Cam that says he's very comfortable with the event and does not have any concerns about it.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Outside consumption provisions for this?
Just like every year, yep, they'll have the appropriate licenses to do that, appropriate approvals from the state.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Go ahead.
Okay, I don't have any other action items. Just I'll run through very quickly. Everybody knows that the bridge on East Main Street, known as Bridge 6, is going to be closed starting April 13th through early June. That'll be a full closure with detours, but hopefully that does not extend beyond early June, and I've been told that they do not expect it to. So, folks, just want to alert folks that there will be additional PFAS testing in southern Bennington. If you've already had your well tested, it will be tested again. If you have not had your well tested, you can please contact the state. If you want to call the town office, we'd be happy to give you a contact for those tests. We are expecting the bids for the next phase of the Ninja Path, Bloomsack Valley Pathway on March 27th. Prices are significantly higher than we expected, and we're going to have to see how much of that project we can get done, but we're going to remain hopeful. And just wanted to let folks know that the so-called South End Water Project will probably begin, the next phase of the South End Water Project will probably begin this summer, and that will begin at the intersection of Jefferson and Observatory. We'll be putting in larger pipe up Merson Street across to South Street, and then we'll be putting in a new water main as well in Margaret Lane. So there will be some disruption in that neighborhood this summer, but should hopefully address the pressure issues there. Finally, we've resumed bulk water sales from Morgan Springs, so it's nice to see that income coming in, and Shannon's actually working on a congressionally directed spending request for our water filtration plant upgrade project, which we expect in the next 5 to 7 years. And just want to make sure that you folks are aware of that, and we will be discussing that in more detail when we talk about water sewer budgets in June. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Any board questions on the manager's report? Okay. Then the next agenda item is upcoming agenda. So if anybody has any topics that they would like considered for an upcoming agenda, Nancy?
We need to revisit the town policy for signs on public properties.
Okay.
Don't we have policies on a calendar that should come up to this board anyway?
It was approved at I believe it was the last meeting for the next 3 years, yes.
Yeah, we did.
But it says you can't put political signs and other signs on town property.
Right.
But it doesn't say what happens when somebody puts their signs on town property.
They get removed if we notice them and somebody...
I've been known to deliver them to the police department.
Yep.
Pick them up, throw them in a dumpster?
Well, we keep them for a little bit, and if somebody comes and claims them, then we'll give them to them. If not, they do get thrown out eventually, yes.
The other thing I'd like to have added on the agenda, we had this wonderful report in the packet. I feel it should have been on the agenda tonight. It's the balance sheet and budget status through the end of February. The town budget ends in June. It would be nice to talk about any questions that the board or the public might have had after reading this.
Okay. Maybe we could have a quarterly review.
So you do get a quarterly review every quarter from Melissa. It's delivered to everybody on this board, and certainly if you had any questions about that, I'm sure Melissa would be happy to come in and discuss them. Yep.
If there is, very good. Okay, thanks. Sarah, anything? No? Jackie?
Nothing.
Claire?
Under other business, office.
Okay. Ed?
Same.
Okay. Then let's move back. And other business items?
Yep.
Nancy?
In our packet, we had a report from the town treasurer. I don't have it with me, but I believe I read that prior to the end of last month, the Ben High received $300,000. I'd like to know where that money came from, who ended up with the money, and what is the money being used for?
Okay. Sarah?
So, and Nancy, if you do want to call in, we'll be happy to talk to you about it.
I want a public answer.
Okay, well, we'll give you an answer in private, and then you can announce it in public.
Did it come from the town?
Yes, it did.
So we'll put that on the...
It should be another, yes.
Discussion,
Yeah.
so.
It's going to be on the next agenda?
We'll work in
we can just report on it for the next meeting.
A quick report on the Ben High funding.
The board approved the town budget last January before the Ben High meeting. Clearly, we did not put $300,000
Nancy,
in this
that
year's
was part of
budget.
the loan that this board approved. It was an $800,000 loan.
Point of order?
That went for several years, and then it was repaid in full, and it turned into a line of credit. So they did take $300,000 as a line of credit.
I think there's value to getting the facts straight and maybe putting your mind at ease a little bit on that one, Nancy. But then we can certainly get an update. Nothing for you, Sarah? Okay. I just want a couple of events near and dear to my heart coming up. The Bennington Area Trail Systems annual meeting is going to be April 8th at 5 p.m. at Harvest Brewing, which is a great location. So if anybody is interested in finding out more about our trail system on and around Mount Anthony, that's a great opportunity to find out more and see how you can get involved. And the Vermont Walk Bike Summit, a statewide meeting of people from all over the state talking about pedestrian and bicycle issues, is coming to Bennington, which is really a great thing for us, and that's going to be May 8th. And you can Google Vermont Walk Bike Summit or go to the Bennington County Regional Commission webpage to find out more about that.
Thanks, Jim. I have two things tonight. First is the Bennington Rescue Squad twice a year is able to offer refurbished AED devices for about $600 to local businesses and organizations. So this certainly helps support the work that they do, and it's good to have those devices readily available when they're needed. So if you're interested in that, please check their website. That sale should be coming up soon. Second, this coming weekend, this coming Saturday, there will be a big event in town town, the No Kings rally from 12 to 3. There's going to be, I've heard that there's going to be some significant turnout, particularly because they have Becca Ballant scheduled as one of their speakers. So for your planning purposes, that's from noon to 3. The road, Depot Street right here, and a little bit of Northside Drive will be closed down for the early portion of that. And parking lots may be quite full in town, so let's all give each other a little grace as we fight for parking.
Clerk?
A couple of things. I almost touched on our earlier comment about safety in the roads here. I am concerned when you're coming down West Street, you make that turn right by the old church cemetery. There's some way we could put up some sort of sign or indication for people not to walk on that curve. Because several times that you come around that blind spot, and there's families walking westbound on the eastbound lane, a little area. So I've come around there and had to swerve to avoid people, or seen other people swerving to avoid. So that's something we can maybe take a look at.
Is that on Route 9? Is that what you're talking about?
Right in front of the Williamsec Inn, I think, is where he's referring.
You come around, if you're heading into town, you come around the corner by the old church, that first curve right there. It's a long curve, you come around there, and I'm always encountering.
By the inn or the cemetery?
Right next to the cemetery.
Yeah.
You come around that corner, there's always people walking there, and of late I've seen families, there's a little disconcerting. I don't believe you there, but I come around the corner, boom, there's people there.
So the reason I'm asking if it's Route 9, because if it's Route 9, it would be a state road, and they'd have to be, but if it's an Old Bennington road, then it would be Old Bennington you'd want to speak to.
Well, sure, I know, I believe it is Old Bennington, but again, that was my concern, that little curve there. It's got monument.
I've thought, Clark, for the last 40 years that I've lived here, that Old Bennington should request a traffic engineering study of that mess. I even may have suggested it at one point or another, but that whole area is so confusing. But I understand. I know right what you're talking about. So, yeah.
Just one of those things that scares the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Going over there, somebody with a kid right there on that half of the street. You don't see them when you're coming around. I drive a reasonable speed.
Thanks. That's a good point.
So the residents of Old Bennington about 2 years ago elected to put up some additional traffic signs in that area. So you'll notice now that if you are going south on Monument Avenue, right in front of the old First Church, that used to be a 2-lane road with no need to stop, and yielding was at your will or not. So that is now a one-way must stop, and that's helped a bit, but thank you for the feedback. I'll make sure it gets to somebody.
Yeah, just that, that area is fine, but it's that curve right around the center.
It's bad, yeah. I just have a very quick comment, and that is that I want to thank the rescue squad. I had a bit of an emergency incident on St. Patty's Day, and I happened to be at a very busy local establishment on Main Street, and I ended up having 2 crews show up. I think they were in the neighborhood. And I was escorted I got a nice ride in an ambulance to the hospital. These guys are incredible. Their commitment to our well-being is really standout. So support your local rescue squad, please. Thank you.
Thank you to the rescue squad. And apparently we have an executive session.
Yes.
Need for an executive session. So is there a motion to go into executive session?
For contracts.
For contract discussion. Ed, thank you. And a second. Jackie, and all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.